Yo, what's up, world? Check this out. This honestly speaking with Big Will. Let me see. I'm Big Will. And listen, today, man, I wanted to just really go through some conversations about grief, in lieu of Mother's Day approaching. I know a lot of people who are close to me who unfortunately are having to, spend this Mother's Day without their mothers. And man, it's such a tough thing. I know for me, I just go through so many emotions, you know what I'm saying? Like, um, first let me say this, man, condolences to, everyone out there who has lost a parent. You know what I mean? I think that um, this world is just so hard to navigate as it is. You know what I mean? Like, so when you add in there, a loss of such a significant figure, um, man, it can really make life tough. You know what I mean? For me, I lost my mom 16 years ago. And, for whatever reason, it's 3 days, three times of the year that are just most difficult for me. Um, it's Mother's Day, it's her birthday, and it's the anniversary of her passing. And for me, that's Valentine's Day weekend. So um for like even 16 years now, I feel like my body just kind of and my mind just subconsciously feels the weight of that time coming. You know what I mean? And I didn't have the best relationship with my mom. Um, those who know me know, my story, but those of you who don't, I grew up in a very abusive environment. Um, my mother was addicted to alcohol. She moved my sister and I to a small place, small town called Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Um, she moved us from California, from Los Angeles to Pine Bluff, and it was a culture shock, for me. Um, my mom didn't make the best decisions when it came to her kids. Um, yeah, and to go to a place, like Pine Bluff, where her sister was, at the time, and I believe still is. It's my aunt, but my mom ended up being with her sister's daughter's father. And so yeah, I went to high school with my cousin, and it was difficult. It was difficult as a, 15, 16-year old, having to deal with, just the everything that came with that. You know what I mean? Like people kind of telling you that, your uncle is your dad when, the man really ain't nothing to me. Um, kind of being put in the middle of, you know, my mom and my aunt's beef because I was the oldest. And it really just affected my life. You know what I'm saying? My aunt used to use me for information as to what's going on in the house, with my mom and you know, uh her daughter's dad. And she would tell me if I told her that, she would get me back to California. And that's all really I wanted to do was get back to my family. So I would tell her what she wanted to know. You know what I mean? And it was just a vicious cycle, you know what I mean? Like as soon as I told her, whatever the situation was, she would check my mama and check him. And then, he would essentially check me on it, or my mom would check me on it. You know what I'm saying? And the day after Christmas, my 11th grade year, um, they put me out of the house. My mom allowed, this person to put me out the house. So I had to ultimately live with an ex-girlfriend's aunt. Just giving you the backstory just to kind of explain, just my experience with my mom. Um, so yeah, man, it took a minute for me, you know what I mean? Like, when I got into the army, after I graduated, I left, and went back to California. Um, and I didn't talk to my mom when I joined the military. I didn't talk to my mom for like 7 years because I just got tired of, the decisions that she made, affecting so much of my life. You know, in that 7 years, I had found out that, her and the guy were no longer together. And she was now with one of my best friend's fathers. And she's cool with my best friend's mom. So it just was a weird dynamic. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, just through all of that, it just became a lot for me. And so I didn't talk to my mom for 7 years. Like I said, I ended up seeing my mom again once I got out the army and I had my twins. My aunt had thrown a surprise birthday party for my grandmother, and I was told my mom was gonna be there. So I knew she was gonna be there. She didn't know I was gonna be there, and I was bringing my daughters with me, my twins at the time, who were babies. So it'd be my mom's first time seeing her grandchildren. When I saw my mom, so many emotions just came over me. You know what I mean? Like my mom just looked bad, and at the time we had just gotten a house, just moved into a house, and I just thought it was an obligation of mine to make sure that I extended, my home to my mom. Um, no matter what my childhood was like, or you know what I went through, or what she put me through. I just felt like, it was my obligation to make sure that, my mom was okay and that she had a stable environment. Um, so I offered my home to her, and she told me that she couldn't move because she didn't want to, leave her husband. I broke down because I felt like, man, I was just another, you know, uh, situation where my mom chose a man, over herself and over me. You know what I mean? And I never forget, man, my aunt told me, Bus, just you gotta understand, your mom is grown, so she's gonna make, choices that she feel like are best for her. Don't try not to personalize those things. And as hard as that was, you know what I mean? Like, I personalized it anyway. But a few months later, my mom had called me and told me she was ready to go. And she wanted to come live with us. So cool. I paid her restitution at the time. And we had planned for her to move in with with us uh Valentine's Day weekend, which is also her favorite time of the year, Valentine's Day. So it just, it was cool. We was excited. It made sense. We had the room for my mom. I was excited about her being in, my daughter's life in a more, I guess, significant role than she played in mine. Um, I was looking forward to it. And I was working nights at the time. I was working from 7:30 at night to 7:30 in the morning. And as soon as I got off work that Friday, I got in the shower and my phone started going off. And it was my cousin first. And I missed that call. But then my brother called me um, and asked me if I heard, what had happened. And of course, I didn't. And he told my mom passed. And I just remember breaking down, man. Like I felt like I had a number of emotions, you know what I mean? I felt um blame, you know what I mean? I felt like had I just been more mature about that situation, would she still be here? You know what I mean? Just me being a father, I can only imagine what it must feel like for your oldest child and only son to not really be messing with you for 7 years. Like I didn't talk to her, I didn't see her, nothing. And I wondered how much that contributed to her drinking. And if that's what ultimately led to her not being here anymore. Um, sorry. So in a lot of ways, that still kind of sits with me. Um, I've been navigating through life alone since I was 16 years old. And I could tell you that growing up in a situation where, you don't necessarily feel important or or loved or even wanted, it's a difficult thing, right? Like I say all the time, and I envy, relationships that, people around me have with their moms. I wish that I had that. Um, but I say all that to say that, it doesn't make losing her any easier. Um, in fact, it's more difficult. There's so many questions that I have that, will never be answered. I wish that my children had a chance to know their grandmother. And sometimes I blame myself for a lot of this just through, decisions that I made or that I had to make. But ultimately, I know for me, therapy had helped me tremendously. You know what I mean? Like, I find a way to, I've learned to find a way to celebrate my mom um, as much as I can. I don't have the best experiences. I don't have a lot of just good memories. And, that hurts sometimes. You know what I mean? I know, during these times of the year that I was talking about, man, I just feel like just the week leading up to it is always so heavy for me, man. It's like I can't wait for the day to pass, you know what I'm saying? And just so I can kind of move on. But again, my point in all of this is, no matter how good or bad the relationship is with a parent, um, to lose one is always difficult, man, because that's a part of you that's gone now. You know what I mean? So, I find myself sometimes trying to use that experience to just motivate me to be better. You know what I mean? To have just a little more compassion sometimes when it comes to certain things. I think all of that has come through therapy. I remember being just so angry, a lot of my life. Um, and that anger would play out in just, different facets of my life in different ways. I went through a phase where I was fighting all the time. I went through a phase where, I always had guns and, just wasn't the most responsible man. But I think what these days do for me now is just make me want to be a better father to my children. Um, and I think even that in itself is um, a different conversation because when you start talking about co-parenting and not really having the ability to parent how you want to parent, or yeah, that could just be a lot for sure. You know what I mean? But with the time that I do have and the access that I do have, I just try to be an example for mine, um, of a lot of things, of accountability, of integrity, principle, because I really stand on just principles. I think that what I've learned throughout my life is um it's just not to put a lot of weight on titles. You know what I mean? Like, so mother, father, sister, brother, whatever, like I put weight on effort because I think it's the effort that matters. I think it's the titles that allow for toxic situations to linger, right? Because we always give ourselves the excuse of who this person is or how much time we have with these people, and I don't know that those things are necessarily as important as how these people treat you. You know what I mean? So every day for me, think about my mom. I wonder if she's proud. um I wonder if she was here, could or would she be a better grandparent than she was a parent? I There's just so many conversations that I just wish I could have with my mom. Um, and yeah, I think it affects me on so many levels that, I know that those conversations will never be had. And, just through therapy, I've found different ways of managing and kind of getting through these days. But it's also one of those things like, man, who do the strong people go to? You know what I mean? Like, I pride myself on being a solid person, man, for everybody around me. And, a lot of times when I go through these kind of things, I have to kind of deal with them alone because I don't feel like if you haven't lost a parent or if you haven't lost a mother specifically, it's hard to really understand what that person is going through. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's just about just trying to get through the day, man, as best I can. Um, I've kind of learned that trying to celebrate my mom has been better for me emotionally and for my mental health than just being angry. Even though I kind of go through just a myriad of emotions, I think that I try hard to manage those. So if it does creep into like the negative space, I try to kind of just check myself in that. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we know this went on, but how much of that was due to alcoholism? How much of that was due to however she grew up, right? So it's trying to find ways to um allow for grace, right? Like it's trying to do that. I think that what I've learned through therapy is just to try my best to be a better person every day, better than I was the day before. And that's a task for me. I've lost a lot of people in my life. Um, Uncles, cousins, friends, parents, um, soldiers, like I've just experienced so much loss. Um, I think that I've learned through that to appreciate being here. Think through understanding how extremely short life can be. Um, I try to be as intentional as possible about just protecting my energy and protecting, like, you know, how I think, how I feel. Try not to get too consumed with the negativity, right? Because that can all affect your health. Stress is real. And I understand that I deal with, I guess, what they call layered trauma. It's a tough childhood, military, personal life. It's just a lot. It's a lot to navigate every day. But I have some amazing people around me. Um, I try to consume myself with love. It's the reason why I try to be around, my babies so much. My daughters. Um, because I need it. I think they are like my emotional support people, you know, for all intents and purposes. So they allow for a positive distraction for me. So weekends like this or weeks like this that I go through, whatever, I just kind of consume myself with my children. You know what I mean? My twins when they here, or just Cam every day, my 4-year old. You know what I mean? Like that is something that I just enjoy doing. Um, but again, I guess what I would suggest to all of you who have lost somebody and a mother specifically, just to try to celebrate them, during this time. I'll never tell you that it gets easier because it doesn't. That person isn't coming back, and you know whatever the relationship was between mother and child, man, that doesn't feel better over time. You know what I mean? You can miss that person more. There's a lot that just comes with just the overall finality of death. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, man, I just really wanted to talk to a lot of y'all about who may be out there going through similar things. Um, just try to explain what my weeks are leading up to Mother's Day, or weeks are leading up to my mom's birthday, or to the anniversary of her passing, in hopes that it can help you, right? So I take a picture out of my mom, my favorite picture of my mom, um, the morning of, and I light a candle. I got a bunch of candles. We light the candles, put it next to my mom, and just let it burn all day. Sometimes, I'll go by the picture and just think, you know what I mean? Just have conversations. Get out a lot of the things that I feel and that I'm thinking at the time. And, I know it may sound crazy to some, but that works for me. Um, and it's just crazy how just over the course of like a day, how many times I hear my mama's voice, in stuff. And in things that I do, or in, decisions that I have to make. Um, I just hear her voice, and it's not even say that, she would have thought that way. I just hear her voice, so along with my aunt, my aunt, Pookie, her sister, her oldest sister, man, that she was more of a mother to me than my mom was. So yeah, to lose such significant people, man, in your life is just it's tough. But we got to find ways to keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? Life is gonna keep life, and so you just got to find the best ways to go about it. You know, um, be intentional about protecting your energy. Be intentional about happiness, right? I think all those things matter. I think self care, self love, all those things matter. Um, and hopefully you could find somebody who, or surround yourself with people who, um, just care about your well being. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, man, that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about today, man. I figured, every time I get the thought to, just get to talking, man, that I just need to record. You know what I mean? And get some of this out. So that's what I'm doing. Um, thank y'all for supporting me. Um, thank you for supporting this channel. And man, just know I'm here with y'all. You know what I'm saying? And until next time, man, I love y'all, man. Swear I do. Happy Mother's Day.